Am I live?
You're live.
Hi, everybody. This is Sherry Grunska with the Horse Barn Management Show, and thanks for watching. It is 6:30, and if you're on, let us know where you're from. Say hi and welcome. We're going to talk about a few things. I have had people send me questions, and if you have a question, go ahead and type it in, and my friend Sherry is going to tell me what the questions are, and we're going to talk about them. The Horse Barn Management Show is put on by ProBarnManagement.com and myself, Sherry Grunska. So please check out ProBarnManagement.com. We have a lot of great resources, and we have vodcast, and we have blogs and podcasts. And Sherry's trying to get that on my phone so she can see the questions. And I'm super excited. If you caught it last week, I'm going to repeat myself. If you didn't catch it, I'm going to tell you we're turning my best-selling book. We've been recording, videotaping all summer, filming a step-by-step guide to starting and running a successful horse boarding business. We're turning it into a video series, and it's on Vimeo. And the first 2 videos are out, and it's going to turn this whole book into a live video format. You can find the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble or at ProBarnManagement.com. If you want to check out the videos that are already there, you can go to ProBarnManagement.com and check out vodcast, and it'll take you right to Vimeo. And you can watch them. They're, I think the first one's an hour and a half long, somewhere in there. The second one's a little over an hour. And we're going to finish up one this week that should be live by the end of the week. And then we've already filmed the 4th one. So we're going along. We're a little behind. I wanted to have a lot more done sooner. But as I told you last week, I got run over by a horse on September 4th. And I'm just now, I think, past the 7th week of recuperating. I broke 5 ribs, fractured a bunch of ribs, and just all kinds of stuff. But I'm doing good. In fact, today was the first day that I helped my husband bring horses in from the paddocks this afternoon. I wore a protective vest, like an eventing vest, a protective vest that the lady whose horse ran me over was so sweet. She bought me one really nice to protect my ribs and everything around my body there. So I wore that today, and I didn't actually get the horses out from in the gate because they were kind of wound up with the wind, and I wanted to be super careful. So I had him get the horse out, and then I took the horse in to the stall. And I just am taking baby steps. And it's kind of weird because as you get older, I've always been super confident on the ground with horses, and I have just a little inkling of, not that I'm scared of the horse, but definitely scared I don't want to get hurt again. And so I have about 4 horses that I'm still not handling because they're definitely our most challenging ones, and he's taking them. But I'm doing pretty good for 7 weeks in, and I'm finally handling horses, just going real slow, and I'm cleaning stalls and kind of getting back to all of that. And I'm actually going next Saturday to a barn to do some barn consulting about 2 hours away from our barn. Super excited about that. So things are moving forward. Yay! I'm finally feeling like things are moving forward. So anyways, we're going to hop right into this. The hour always goes so quick. And I'm going to start talking about a few things. I first want to talk about deworming for the fall schedule and kind of some issues that you might run into if you have a boarding stable. And if you have a question, just let Sherry know, and she'll let me know, and we can answer it the best that I can. I'll try my hardest to answer your question, and if I don't know an answer, I'll look during the week and try to find an answer. So anyways, you're running a boarding stable, either you're buying one, you're thinking of setting one up. There's so many things to think about. Of course, how many horses you want to have, what size stable, what kind of disciplines, all that. Are you going to build? Are you going to keep it? If you're in a warm state, you don't need maybe an indoor arena, but if you're in a state like Wisconsin or the Midwest or up in Canada where it's really cold, you definitely need an indoor arena. So lots to think about. And one of the things that I get asked a lot is about how we do deworming here at our barn as far as the clients. And we have, I think right now we have about 36 horses here. We're trying to downsize a little. And so what I wanted to share with you is how we do it here for the fall. So I just put an email out to everybody that I'm going to be ordering Equimax for all the horses. Every horse on the property will get dewormed in the next week or two. And we usually like to wait till the first hard frost. We're really warm this time of year, so we really haven't had a hard frost yet, but I want to get them ordered because, believe it or not, a lot of the websites, they're sold out, which is kind of crazy already. So the one question I get is, do we include the wormer as part of the board, or do we charge a fee for it? And I've seen barns do it both ways. We charge for it. So if I'm going to buy it for a horse, whatever I pay for it, that's what I charge the boarder. And that would include shipping and all that. I figured it all out and divided out. What I do is I send out an email to everybody, and if they want me to order the dewormer for them, I will do that, and then I'll put it on next month's invoice. If they want to get it themselves, they're more than welcome to do it. But with this month of November, every horse gets dewormed no matter what their fecal count is, unless there's a medical situation, and then it has to be vet approved. Now, for the horses that you're going to do as a barn owner or barn manager, if you're going to be worming horses, there are barns where they'll do every horse, and the owners of the horses don't worm the horses at all. It's part of a service you offer. I have a lot of boarders that like to do it themselves, and I'm perfectly cool with that. And then I have a lot of boarders that want me to do it, and I do it. I don't charge a fee for that. We have a book that has everybody's stall number, horse's name, and every time they've been wormed over the year. And this will be the last one before I rip that sheet out and give it to them in January. So that is how I do it. Now, a couple things I wanted to talk about that you might have issues with is what if you have a boarder who doesn't want to deworm with the type of dewormer that you're recommending? And so, for example, we follow the state of Wisconsin, the veterinarian's equine protocol for deworming here. And depending on where you live in the States, or in even up north in Canada, sometimes it can change depending on the parasite problems you have where you live, where it might be a little different out west than it is here. And we follow the veterinarian protocol. But what if you have a boarder who wants to do things all natural, holistic, and they don't want to use that type of dewormer? They're worried about it being hard on their horses' intestines and stomach and all that. And I have come across that, and what I would suggest is if you have a thing set in place for how you want the horses dewormed, then you need to be strong and follow through with that. And you have to understand it may not please everybody in your barn, and you could lose a boarder over it, but you have to remember that it's a boarding stable. And because it's a boarding stable and you have horses coming and going, you really don't have the luxury of going completely natural unless you're having everybody doing fecal counts quite often. And the thing is, we've had horses do fecal counts, and they could be a high shedder or a medium shedder, and they're in herds with other horses. So if a horse is in their own backyard and the person's taking care of their own horses at home, they can do whatever they want. But when you have a boarding stable where you have horses traveling, you could have a turnover of clients and horses. It makes a huge difference. So I want you to think about that. I have had to say no to people who want to go a more natural route, because there are things you can buy out there that are more natural wormer. And we did let one person try that for the spring once, and it turned out that their fecal count actually went up. it for the one horse, and it just really didn't work. And so once they understood that, I was willing to try it for the matter of the month to see the difference, because I was kind of curious too. But it turned out that it didn't work. So just something to think about when you have a boarding stable. And ultimately, it's your barn, your business. You have to do it however you want to. But you have to remember that in order to have a great reputation and to keep all the horses on the same health program, you need to keep them all treated exactly the same. And sometimes boarders don't want to hear that. They might want something special for the horse. And ultimately, you have to say, this is how we do it here. And so I guess your biggest thing you're going to want to think about is if you're going to include the wormer in your board. If you are, make sure you're not losing money. And the other part is if you're going to give it yourself, if you're going to have them give it, you're going to be doing a lot of educating. I have had quite a few people throughout the years that didn't know how to worm a horse. So they wanted to learn, and I was more than happy to teach them so they could do it themselves. And then make sure they fill out the book. And yeah, sometimes I have to be kind of firm and strict and may, get on people that are running behind or close to the date that their horse has to be wormed by. But I figured if I take care of it ahead of time and I'm on them and I get everybody on the same page, it runs much smoother. And we have a good group at our barn, and they understand that it just needs to be done. It's part of it, and I know life gets busy and they have their families and they're doing this, but if they're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it, and it always works out okay. So just a few thoughts on worming. If you have any questions, let me know. Sherry, any questions? Okay, so I thought tonight we would talk about trainers at your boarding stable. This is always kind of a hot topic, because if you have a boarding stable and you are the barn owner, not the trainer, but the barn owner, the first thing you have to decide is what kind of barn do you want? Do you want a training barn where you're going to have a trainer maybe housed out of there, one or two trainers that will be breed or discipline specific, and everybody's going to be in a training program? It could be where the majority of horses are going to shows. You could have a turnover of trainers coming and going, and I'm not trainers, of horses coming and going, especially if a horse has been young and 30, 60, 90-day program, and then they're gone and a new horse is coming in. So a training barn oftentimes will have a lot more transfer of horses, especially if those young horses are being trained and then they're going home to their owner's house, and then a new horse comes in. Or you're going to have a general purpose boarding stable where you have to decide if you're going to have trainers that are your employees or trainers that are just coming and working independently at your barn. And how many are you going to allow? Are you going to have just one specific trainer? And what that whole thing looks like. A lot of people that own boarding stables will call me because they run into problems with trainers and they're not sure how to navigate that. And this live podcast that we're doing is not at all to badmouth trainers at all. It's just that the dynamics of how it works between a barn owner and a trainer, I think at least from what I've seen and from what I learned from 16 years ago when we built our barn, is I think a little bit backwards. I look at it from a barn owner's point of view, and as a barn owner, you have all the skin in the game. You have the overhead. You're the one that has taken the risk of starting the business. And if you have a trainer working out of your barn, they do not have the risk or the skin in the game that you have. They're coming and working out of your facility, and you have to set up how you want it. For some reason, it has been different throughout the years, and I've seen it at my barn too, especially when we first started, where you have the trainer telling the barn owner how things are going to go. And that is not how it works. It's definitely not how it works. If you have a good working relationship with a trainer, you are still the one running the show as the barn owner, and you need to get a grasp on that. And so I want to break this apart and kind of talk about some of the issues that barn owners and barn managers have with trainers and how to resolve them and my thoughts on it. And if you have a question, just jump right in. Good? Okay. So I kind of made out a little list here, and the first thing I want you to think about is the trainer going to be an employee, or are they going to be independent? Because if the trainer is going to be an independent trainer who is going to travel to a few barns in the area, and they're going to come to your stable, and maybe they're working with a few horses here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then they're going to other barns, but they are not an employee, then they must and they need to have their own liability insurance. And I cannot tell you how many trainers do not have their own insurance. Carry the insurance as a barn owner, and that is simply not true. If they are going to work out of your stable, they have to carry their own liability insurance. It is their business. They're using your place, but they still need their own liability insurance. The only time that changes is when they are an employee and you are paying them every month to train out of the barn. So I really want you to think about that, and I want you to talk to your equine insurance specialist on this, because you really want to get this correct, this part of it. Because if something happens and that trainer does something to someone and they have a lesson and someone gets hurt, seriously hurt, I guarantee you they're going to come back at you as the barn owner and sue. So you really want to get that part, clear. The next thing that I get asked a lot about is how to charge a trainer that's working out of the barn. And you can have it be where you charge them a percentage, or you can have them pay per lesson. And every stable does it differently. I am working with one person right now who is changing some things at her barn, and she is going to charge the trainers a fee per lesson. And it's because this is a change, it's coming with a little bit of backlash. But the thing is, the trainers are using the facility. It's wear and tear on everything. And, if you want to charge them, it's no different than any other professional that is using or renting a building, whether it's maybe it's a yoga instructor, maybe it's someone, teaching fitness at a gymnasium. However it works, this just happens to be with horses. You should, as the barn owner, you should be getting paid for that, for them using your facility. So I just want you to think about that. As far as a percentage or keeping track of how many times they ride horses or do lessons, you can do it however you want, and that's definitely up to you. Okay. One of the big things that I always tell people don't do, and people do it all the time, is a barn owner will barter with a trainer, and they'll say, you can train here, you train my horses, you give my kids lessons, you do this, and I'll let you keep your horses here free. And I really want to tell you I would not do that at all. First of all, there's too many gray areas, and I can tell you from experience how many times I've gotten calls from barn owners who it starts off like it's a really good idea. The trainer has her 2 horses there, and she's getting free board, and she's supposed to be giving you lessons, or she's supposed to be training a horse. And then what happens after a few months is she kind of slacks off, or he slacks off, and all of a sudden someone is getting the short end of the stick. Because there's not money being transferred there, that trainer oftentimes will tend to go to the clients who are paying them actual money. And I've had barn owners call me because they're fed up, they feel like they're being used, and now how do they get it back on track? And it gets messy. And so if I could say one thing right off the bat, do not barter. I've had trainers here at our barn, several trainers throughout the years, who have kept horses here and they have paid full board. And they paid the full entire board for the horse. And so they are a boarder and they are a trainer, and it cuts out all that messy gray area. It's very clean, very professional, and it just works out so much better. So I want you to think about that, because it's very easy to say, okay, I'll barter with you. You can keep your horse here, and I want 2 lessons a week. And then all of a sudden, you know, one of you is sick or one of you has to miss, and it just seems like what ends up happening is the barn owner gets the short end of the stick. So I really want you to think about it. It's just, to me, it's a bad business model. And you got to remember that even if the trainer isn't working your horse or they're not giving you lessons, you're still cleaning the stall, you're still feeding the horse, you're still doing all the labor and all the costs and all the insurance and all the expense to have that horse on your property and care for it. So I really want you to think about that. It's super important. Any questions? Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about was, oftentimes I'll get a call from someone and what is happening is they're having trainer drama in the barn because they don't have enough room in the arena, and they have one trainer that tends to be dominating it or is having a lot of classes or having group lessons, and another trainer comes in and they want to give a lesson to one person and there's not a room, or it's different disciplines. And if you're going to, first of all, if you're going to build a boarding stable, if I could recommend one thing, make sure your arena is plenty big enough to be able to handle a couple trainers in there along with other people riding. Our arena is 80 by 200 and we've just never had a problem because it's so big. But a lot of times people will go like 60 by 120 or 60 by 150, and it really is not big when you have these massive animals in there. They're taking up a lot of space. And then you have trainers trying to do their job. And usually what ends up happening is it sometimes is a battle of who's going to be the most dominant in the trainer area with personalities, and usually someone backs off. But what happens is it causes stress and drama, and it's not a healthy way for a business to run or a barn. So I really think that if you have a smaller arena, you can't obviously go and make it any bigger, then I would set up time slots and say, this is how we're going to do this here with people that are boarding and with people that are getting lessons. And you're going to have to be very clear and concise. And you as the barn owner or the barn manager are going to say, this is how we're going to do it. It's not the trainer saying how they're going to do it. It's you as the barn owner. You're going to say, this is how it's going to run here. They can either like it or they can find another barn to go to. But you can't have them dominating the arena. And ultimately, your bread and butter comes from your boarders. They're the ones paying for the board. And, you know, so you have to really put them first and what that looks like. Now, if you're a trainer who also owns the barn and you have a boarding stable, then you can do it however you want. But I'm just talking about for the trainers who are going from stable to stable and are training horses here and then moving here and all that. This is where it gets a little bit crazy. So I really want you to think about that. So the size of the arena matters, especially if you're working horses and you're going to be, if you get to build, go bigger, it's definitely worth it. If you have a smaller arena, then you're going to have to really make up a schedule. Okay. One of the problems I've run into over the years, I haven't in a very long time, but I had it at the beginning, is trainers that kind of undermine the barn owner or the barn manager and kind of do their own thing. And It's really important to make sure that there is an understood agreement between you and the trainer on who's actually running the business. So to make it clear in how I would say this, if you have a boarding stable and in your boarding stable, well, I'll tell you how we've done it. So in our boarding stable, we have 27 horses in our big barn in their house, and they go outside every day. And when I first opened, I had trainers that wanted the horses in, that were going to be ridden or that were going to have lessons. And I learned very quickly that it made our job really hard, because I had half the horses going out, half the horses in. Trainers sometimes they were supposed to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning. They didn't show up till 10 o'clock, so now the horse is sitting in even longer. And I had people that were supposed to have lessons, and the lesson got canceled. It turned out the horse ended up staying in all day. Just a lot of stuff like that, and I didn't like that. So what I decided to do was I changed things, and I said that all horses go outside. Even if you have a lesson, they all go outside in the morning when we put them out. And if you have a lesson at 8 o'clock, you'll have to go get your horse and bring them in. And the only time the horse is in is if they're going to a show, or the vet or farrier or something like that, or if they're lame. But otherwise, for regular lessons or for training, the horses are already outside. Our barn doesn't open till 8. And if the trainer's going to come and work a horse, they have to go get the horse and bring him in. Mentally, it was much better on the horses. It was easier for us cleaning stalls. We didn't have horses that were just sitting in all day because no one ended up showing up for a lesson or training. And I felt like it just made our job much easier. And ultimately, that's what's more important, is how my job as the barn manager, and I'm cleaning stalls and doing chores, I need to make sure that my job is easy enough that I don't get burnt out. So we changed that, and we got a little rift at the beginning from people because they wanted to have their horse in so their horse was cleaner, or they didn't want to have to walk out to get their horse. I never had anyone leave over that change, but I did have some trainers. I would say one trainer was kind of miffed at us, because for them to have to walk out to the paddocks or the pasture and get the horse is time consuming for them. And if they have 5 horses to ride, that's extra stuff they have to do, and they didn't like that. But I had to look at it like a business where what matters is what David and I were doing. So I didn't care that they had to walk out and get their horse. If I would have left the horse in, it made my job harder. And they're already working out of my barn, a nice place that we keep up. And, we have to take care of everything. So we wanted that horse out. So there was a little bit of I don't know if you'd call it a battle of who's going to win out on that. And ultimately, I got stronger, and I decided that's how we're going to do it, and we did it. And the trainers, the trainers we have now have no problem with it at all. In fact, I haven't had a problem like that for years. But so many barns would do that, where the trainer says how they're going to do things. We're going to add extra hay, we're going to add extra grain, we're going to do all this stuff. And they kind of act like it's their barn, but it's coming off of my dime and my labor and my cost. So I wanted to make sure I had that straightened out, and that I am willing to work with trainers, but ultimately, if there's going to be extra stuff that they want for that horse, then someone has to pay for it, whether it's the owner of the horse or the trainer. And I know the trainer's not gonna, so it's gonna come off the owner of the horse. It needs to all be talked about. So I want you to really think about the dynamics of that when you're dealing with trainers at your barn, because it can be the best relationship in the world. In fact, the trainers I have now, I just love them, and they are an asset to our business, and they really make the barn safer and add so much to it. But a trainer can also make your life very hard and more challenging if you allow them to. Any questions, Sherry?
No.
Okay. One of the things that I wanted to talk about when it comes to trainers, because I hear this a lot from barn owners, is They want to ask someone to leave, a trainer, because they've had lots of problems with that trainer, but they're so worried about asking the trainer to leave because they know they're going to lose a lot of clients too, a lot of horses. So two things. First of all, trainers may throw this at you, as the barn owner, and say, I'm here and I'll make your business. Your business is successful because I'm here and I'm bringing you all these clients. Well, they may be bringing you clients, but they can also help you lose clients really easy, especially if, for instance, you let someone leave. And we did that years ago. We had to ask a trainer to leave, and when she left, she took, like half our barn with her. And it was pretty crazy, devastating at the time. I can remember crying, and I was pretty stressed out because I thought, how are we going to function? We're losing a lot of horses. And I had a waiting list, but I sure did not have that many horses on a waiting list. And I was pretty stressed. Plus, I knew that I'd have to have all these horses coming in. I just knew the work that was involved. Ultimately, it was the best thing we ever did. And even though at the time it was very stressful, it changed the whole dynamics of our barn. With this trainer that we were having problems with, I knew that if I could get through the rough part, it would make it so much easier, and it would change everything, the atmosphere, the direction I wanted to go, because my barn, it was being run by the one trainer, and no other trainers wanted to come, because they felt like they were stepping on toes. I had clients who wanted to switch trainers but were scared to, because it was too awkward being in the barn and seeing this one trainer and working with her, and now you're going to go to another trainer. It was just a very uncomfortable situation all the way around. So instead, those people would leave because they didn't want to be with that trainer. So not only was I losing boarders because they wanted to go to a different barn for a different trainer, because the trainer wouldn't come to our barn, when I finally did ask the trainer to leave, I lost a whole bunch of horses. And it was really a good wake-up call, but actually it really, in the end, was so much better for our stable. So I tell people, if you're in a situation like that, take a chance and go forward, because life's too short to feel uncomfortable in your own barn. It's too short to deal with all the drama. It's too short to have someone tell you how things are going to run when it's your barn, your home, your business. You're the one that took out the business loan. You can't do that. So I'm really a believer of trying to encourage people to, if they find themselves in that situation, to be bold, be strong in your business, because don't let one person who is coming to your barn, they have no skin in the game, tell you how to run your business. And you have to remember that they can make your business great, but you can also lose boarders with them. So don't ever let them tell you that the reason that your business is so good is because of them, because that is not the case. It goes both ways very equally. So, okay, if you have any other questions, just jump in. Otherwise, I will keep talking. One of the problems I had early on, and I have had it twice happen, but mostly a long time ago, is where I had trainers that were working out of our barn, and people were paying them for full-time training, and the trainer was supposed to be working the horse like 5 days a week. And my husband and I knew that wasn't happening. And then what made it even worse is when the owner of the horse would come up to me and say, hey, have you seen how my horse is going, da-da-da-da-da. And I knew that the trainer had not been out. And they were paying a lot of money for training, and the trainer had not been out. And it really was an awkward situation both times, because when I had to tell them the truth, both times they wanted to have a meeting with the trainer, and David and I had to be there. And in fact, one time the trainer denied it and said that we were lying, and we weren't. It was just they did not, want to own up that they weren't doing what they should be doing. So now looking back, you have to remember that your reputation is on the line, and the trainers working out of your barn are representing your business. And if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and if they are cheating people out of training or money, whatever it is a reflection on you. And if you know about it, then you're guilty too. So just, if you see something that's funny, go ahead and speak up. It's your business. You have everything on the line there, and you want to have a business with integrity and honesty. And if a trainer isn't doing their job and they're collecting money and lying about it, it needs to be addressed. So I know that's kind of a bummer thing to hear about, but believe it or not, I get calls about it all the time. And it happened to me, so it is something that happens. And I pray it never happens to you, but I want you to really think about it, because unfortunately sometimes people aren't very honest. So that was just something I wanted to put that out there. Okay. Let's see here. I had made a little list here, and okay, one thing I wanted to talk about is if you have a trainer that's going to work out of your barn, I would suggest having a contract with the trainer, and maybe have your attorney look it over before you have the trainer sign it. Just a nice contract for working with them, that if they're going to work out of your barn, how much you're going to get paid, all this, and that they need to follow the barn rules. If you have a trainer that is not following the barn rules, they need to be treated just like everybody else. The trainers at our barn have to follow the barn rules just like everybody else. And I don't know why it is that sometimes some trainers get attitudes and they feel like they're above it. I don't know if it's because when you look at the whole hierarchy of the horse industry, trainers are glorified. I mean, they do a great job. I am not a trainer, and what they do sometimes is very dangerous, and they should be commended for what they do, but they're still not above following the rules. And sometimes they do things that the boarders know they're not allowed to do, or they just make up their own plans. And so I've had to talk to trainers about that, and like I said, the group we have now is great. They follow everything, and it's wonderful. But it's just something really to think about with trainers. And the other part of it is too, of course I had this happen when we were brand new in the first couple of years, but it's just something to think about is, if you're going to have trainers come in your barn, really be aware of their training practices and what they're doing. I did have a situation early on in the first couple of years where we had to ask a trainer to leave because their training practices, I felt, were inhumane to the horse. They were just terrible what they were doing to the horse, and I did not agree with it. Some people don't have a problem with certain things, but I just felt it wasn't a good thing. And I even had boarders calling me. They were upset with what they were seeing, and it really was very stressful to watch. So I had to ask someone to leave and not to come back to our barn because of that. So if you see something that you feel uncomfortable with, you have to remember it's your barn, and you can do whatever you want. So if you don't like a certain training technique, you have to be honest and say you can't do that here. And if there's a problem, then that trainer isn't the right trainer for you. So I just want you to think about that in case you get something where a trainer does something that really is not cool. Okay, Sherry, I don't even know what time it is.
It is 7:10.
Wow, I've just been like, rah, rah, rah. Okay. Let's see. I'm just looking here. I think we talked about a lot about trainers. I think the thing is, and if there's trainers that are watching this, trainers are an asset. And I mean, when you have a barn and trainers and they work really well together, it just makes the barn solid. As a business model, it It gets everybody on the same page. I like variety, so the trainers that we have at our barn, we have 5 different trainers, and they all teach a little differently. They teach different stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good, because with a general purpose boarding barn, you're going to have some people that love natural horsemanship. You might have someone that teaches saddle seat, someone that's jumping, dressage. You know, it could be all different sorts of things. You could have, you know, speed in there where people are doing speed events. There's so much to think about when you have a lesson, you know, lessons or a training program, and it's all good stuff. Just make sure that everybody's on the same page and you have the same kind of positive encouragement that comes out of these trainers, and it gives the barn a positive vibe. You really want that. It's super important. Okay, I think that is all. If you don't have any questions, I'm just going to talk about a few more things. No questions on trainers at all? Okay. So anyways, that's it on trainers. If you have any other questions or you have problems with trainers, you know, please feel free to message me. You can go on Pro Barn Management, and you can email me. I know it's really common with a lot of barn owners where they struggle with trainers, and they're not sure how to get the trainer to, you know, it could be safety issues. It could be children. Sometimes, I've seen this a couple times, where a barn owner will call me and they'll bring their children or a dog to the barn. I've had trouble with dogs at the barn with trainers, and I don't want the dogs in the arena, and the trainer was doing it anyway. So you really want to get some of that stuff all on the same page as far as how you want to do that. And also the trainers need to understand that if you have barn hours, those barn hours are for everybody. So just kind of think of that. Trainers are going to make your life as a barn owner much easier all the way around, and help keep everyone safe, especially if you're not a trainer, and I'm not a trainer at all. So it's just something to think about. And I think that's all I have on trainers. I wanted to talk real quickly. We're still kind of getting our barn, or winterizing it for, well, it's pretty warm here in Wisconsin. I can't even believe how warm it is still. But we're still doing the last thing. My husband's still getting rid of the last bit of manure, and cleaning out the paddocks and all that. And I've had people contact me. I did have one person contact me, and she had boarders who were upset because they were running heavy equipment around trying to get the paddocks done, cleaning up around the barn, and they were nervous to ride. And I wanted to talk about that real quickly. You know, if you live in a state where you get a lot of rain and a lot of weather like we do here in Wisconsin, the window of opportunity to get these jobs done is very small. And my husband, he can't do it at night. It has to be done during the day. And were you going to sneeze? I'm sure I was going to sneeze. I saw that. And so I always tell people it's a working farm, and sometimes the job has to get done even if it's a disruption to what is going on. And if people are nervous about riding and they can't ride at that time, or they need to go somewhere else, that's just the way it is. Because when he is trying to get rid of the huge mound of manure, and he's got to put it in the skid loader and then put it in the manure spreader and fire up the tractor and go get rid of it, or he's got to clean the paddocks, that stuff has to get done, and it has to get done before winter and before the ground freezes. We've got to get all that done now. And if you have people that are complaining because they feel put out because the stuff is in the way, or it's loud in the way of their riding, then they have kind of an entitlement attitude, and they don't understand that this is all part of a working farm or working stable, working ranch. And you might have to do a little talking with them, and if they still don't get it, then, or they're going to complain that it's a safety issue, then you might want to think about maybe having them move to a different place. I always hate to go to that, but the thing is, there are so many people out there that are looking for a nice boarding stable, and if you're taking time to clean up everything, get everything ready before winter so it's safe for the horses, then if they don't appreciate it, then they probably shouldn't be at your barn. My whole idea behind talking to people is to help barn owners and barn managers, give them courage and let them understand that, you know what's important is that you get these jobs done, and they need a little encouragement. And so while we're trying to get stuff done here, everybody knows that this is a really busy time for my husband, trying to get things going. He's got tractors running. He's got things all over the place trying to get it all done, because once the snow flies, you can't do it anymore. It's everything kind of stops. So go ahead, do your jobs. Tell your boarders what you're doing. If you need to send out an email and say, hey, the arena's going to be closed because we got to get it ready before winter, so be it. You got to do it. And it's okay to do those kind of things. And they have to understand this is just part of a working farm, a working stable, and you're trying to beat the weather. And it is a race for time, especially up here in Wisconsin. So anyways, that's all I have to say today. If you missed the show, you can listen to it anytime. I'll have it on ProBarnManagement.com, or you can listen to it right here on Facebook on ProBarn Management. And please don't forget to go on the website and you can check out our books and all our other resources. And I want to wish you a very blessed week, and keep looking up, and we'll pray that you have a week full of great weather, and just your business just goes well, and hopefully an easy week for you. God bless you, and we'll see you next Monday.